This is Resident Evil 4. This is also Resident Evil 4. They're the same game, but at the same time, entirely unique entities. It's as if the exact same game was made in two alternate universes by two different versions of the same team at Capcom. But there's one core element that completely separates these parallel versions of the same game from each other: the controls. The remake is, in general, applauded for taking the original's core ideas and iterating on them. The level designs are kept largely intact, but expanded to ridiculous degrees, even including an entire semi-open world for you to explore in an area that the original only used as a boss arena. The gameplay is changed significantly, but shares a lot of DNA with the original, even including the same general combat strategies to overcome most obstacles. Shoot an enemy in the leg, go for a melee attack, get him while he's down, shoot the guys with dynamite, flashbang the plaga parasites, etc., etc. However, where the games differ is probably rather obvious to you, and I'm going to explain today how Resident Evil 4's remake uses the same design philosophy as the original, and uses its overhauled controls specifically to take it in a never-before-seen direction, and why both control methods are amazing in their own ways. First, let's establish what the core controls are in either game so that we can go over how the differences between these two systems change the entire experience. Resident Evil 4, not that one, the other one, there. Resident Evil 4 uses the infamous tank controls that the series was known for at the time, which is often considered a barrier for entry by many newer gamers who might not be familiar with the tenets of older game design, and especially not that of older Resident Evil games. You can only move forward and backward, or turn left and right, mimicking the control scheme of a tank, hence the term tank controls. Leon has a knife on him that damages an area of enemies within close range with a sweeping motion. He can only shoot guns, swing his knife, reload, and throw grenades while standing still. If Leon stuns an enemy with a gunshot to the leg or head, he can close in for a strong kick that deals high damage and has an area of effect. The remake, on the other hand, uses a far more modern control scheme, akin to that of more recent entries in the series, specifically iterating on the controls of the Resident Evil 2 remake and Resident Evil Village. Like Resident Evil 2's remake, the Resident Evil 4 remake is played with an over-the-shoulder, modern third-person shooter camera, as well as strafe-focused movement. Leon can move while shooting, though for full accuracy he does need to be standing still. He has access to a knife that can parry enemy attacks, though, like the Resident Evil 2 remake, this knife has a strict limit on its durability. Instead of just a sweeping motion like in the original, Leon's knife also has a stab that he can use that's much quicker, but also limited to one enemy. It takes cues from the likes of Village with the speed and deliberate motion of running, as well as the heavy feeling of context-sensitive melee attack prompts. In general, Resident Evil 4's 2005 incarnation is far more akin to an arcade shooter, whereas its 2023 remake is much more cinematic and weighty, while also being expanded upon in a plethora of ways. The original Resident Evil is famous for being one of the first games to capture tension in its gameplay. The original Resident Evil 4 debatably perfected this, even in spite of all the ways it toned down the series' horror elements. The original trilogy trapped you in small rooms and dark corridors, with only a few bullets to fend off 1 to 3 overwhelming, bullet-spongy enemies. But Resident Evil 4 took a different approach. Here, you have much more ammo with which to gun down enemies, but with that boost in power comes increased friction in equal amounts from enemy forces. Now you're constantly surrounded by 6, 8, even a dozen enemies armed to the teeth with various weapons, all of which have different answers to them that you have to burn into your memory if you want to survive. Because of tank controls remaining intact from the original trilogy, much more than once throughout your playthrough, you'll find yourself cornered, completely unable to maneuver around the enemy onslaught into a safer area. So what do? You back up further to create distance until all that's left is the corner. You draw your best weapons and you start shooting. A shotgun blast to knock the enemies back and, ideally, kill a substantial chunk of them. A pistol shot to the head in hopes of stunning the enemy and opening up the crowd to a melee assault. However, instead of stunning this enemy, You blow his head off and reveal a plaga parasite ready to sever your limbs off. This forces you to equip a flash grenade and toss it into the crowd. This instantly kills the plaga parasite and allows you to finally go for that spinning back kick to the head. It's this back and forth struggle for the advantage that makes Resident Evil 4's gameplay loop so compelling. Every gunshot feels like a step forward, and yet every move the enemy makes feels tangibly threatening. There's a constant game of tug of war that you're playing with the game, fighting desperately for just that little advantage. Sometimes you come out on top, while sometimes you don't. The Krauser boss fight is truly special, because it knows how limited you are in your movement capabilities. Unlike in the remake, Leon doesn't have the ability to parry or any other defensive option like that. All he can do is attack and run, and sometimes heal. Krauser's boss fight is designed around this in a way that feels overwhelming but actually plays very fair. Krauser's attack patterns are rather simple. He'll jump out from cover at a distance to hurl projectiles at you that Leon can dodge with the help of QuickTime events. Then, once he's eaten enough lead from afar, he'll eventually make his way down to bring his knife out to attack you. This is where Krauser gets particularly scary because you get no button prompts to dodge these attacks. Instead, you simply have to trust the game's hitboxes and attempt to run right around him. You can certainly mag dump him and end the encounter quickly if you're especially good, but he's so agile that you'll find it really hard to do so without missing shots and being forced to reload. And if you thought being forced to stand still while shooting left you vulnerable, well, you do not want to be stuck reloading while Krauser's circling you, that's for sure. The way Resident Evil 4 uses tank controls to emphasize the player's power struggle against the enemy is, in a lot of ways, a masterclass in game design. Where the pillars of the PlayStation Trilogy's gameplay were born from limitations and the games thrived off of that, Resident Evil 4 reverses the roles. Rather than having limitations imposed on itself, it imposes limitations on the player. It's because of this understanding of how limitations benefit the gameplay that the player feels powerful every time they overcome the odds. The game is built in a way to where it naturally almost handcrafts for you this feeling of badassery every time you outsmart a seemingly impassable horde of enemies. Close calls and snatching victory from the jaws of defeat are what make Resident Evil 4 special. And nothing adds to these ideas more than the way the game feels to just control. The Resident Evil 4 remake has, of course, a completely different method of controlling Leon. Your range of motion is increased so dramatically, you almost have infinite movement possibilities in comparison to the original. You can strafe, you can move while aiming down sights, you can crouch, you can manually disarm C4 tripwires without shooting at them, you can parry chainsaws? The point I'm making is that there's a lot to Leon's moveset now. So where does the remake get its gameplay-bound tension from? Well, simply put, it takes the exact same step forward from the original that the original had taken in turn with the PlayStation Trilogy. The enemies are even more dangerous now, and there's even more of a back and forth. Your first encounter in the game tells you exactly what you need to know. You are not dealing with the same enemies you were 20 years ago. You may think that it'll be similar, but the second you take out your first enemy, you're met with a rude awakening. He becomes a Crimson Head, and if you're not careful, he can eat up all your resources or perhaps even kill you. The enemies themselves are also generally a lot more aggressive. Plagas spawn from down enemies way more often, and they're immensely trigger happy, more so than they ever were in the original. Enemies can be so agile and aggressive that you'll find yourself standing still more often than you'd think just to shoot accurately, leading to very similar cornered scenarios to that of the original. The back and forth fight for the advantage is still very much intact, but the way the remake handles it is far more focused on flow than it is tension. Let's look at the ever so famous village fight. How does it differ from the original? The level design is, for all intents and purposes, exactly the same, with it broken up into just about the exact same structure. You make your way into the village, and one way or another, you're provoked by the enemy and forced to fight the waves. You make your way into a 2-story building and lock yourself in to gather resources and grab the shotgun, but now you have to deal with the Chainsaw Man. Not the grooming victim, the actual Chainsaw Man in the game. Then, After killing many, and I mean many, enemies, you hear the church bell toll, and Leon makes his famous remark about bingo. Beat for beat, this is the exact same situation in both games. In the original, you're forced to get moving the second you set foot in the village. Enemies spot you from a mile off and immediately begin thrusting their various weapons your way. You're more likely than not bound to try running circles around the enemies while you try to think through your next move. Do you stop in your tracks to start blasting? Do you look for resources? You do have ammo loaded into your gun, right? Should you open your case to see if you have anything to fix that orange health problem from 15 minutes ago? The original begs you these questions every moment, overwhelming you with the amount of problems you have to solve at any given time. And with these problems come few tools with which to solve them. You're vulnerable every time you go on the offensive. You lock into animation, stand in place, use valuable resources, and what's more, in the village encounter, the enemy forces your hand. The tank controls make maneuverability all the more of a concern, as the most you can do is circle the enemy while you mull over your options. And if you find your path blocked by an enemy ahead, you can't just walk around them. Every obstacle ahead of you has to be demolished in order to be navigated. The remake, conversely, lends you all the more maneuverability. If you're cornered, the ability to strafe makes getting out of tight spots far more intuitive. If you're surrounded, you can clear a path by parrying one enemy and using the following stun to get a melee attack in on all the others. Compared to the high-intensity arcade shooter feeling of the original, the remake's controls feel a lot more immersive and cinematic. Just walking into the village alone shows a world of difference simply because you can use stealth to gather resources before being attacked by the mob. The game still makes its efforts to put you into tight situations, and boy does it do that, but because of how it retains the back and forth design philosophy of the original, these new mechanics feel like meaningful tools that you're, again, forced to use. Parrying a chainsaw is an amazing feeling, but it also breaks your knife and uses a valuable resource. The increased enemy aggression encourages parrying to gain the upper hand in spite of this. The substantially boosted amount and variety of enemies makes it a lot harder to use your maneuverability in ways that trivialize the combat. Both Resident Evil 4s utilize the exact same design philosophy I've been reiterating this entire time ad nauseum. Back and forth struggles, tug of war, a dance of sorts. The way either game uses this dance changes, and I cannot stress this enough, everything about the game. You can point out any amount of minor changes not pertaining to the controls of either game, and emphasize the difference in content, sure, but without this fundamental difference in the way Leon moves and fights, a change that follows you for every minute of your playthrough, the remake would still feel like an almost identical game. But because of how differently the remake approaches the back and forth philosophy, just with controls, even parts of the game that fall perfectly in line with their 2005 iterations still feel entirely new. Resident Evil 4's remake is everything that I want a remake to be. Renewed, fresh, and experienced minds taking the skeleton of a game with a lot of potential, regardless of whether it initially reached that potential or not, and putting that skeleton into a new body to bring it to its full potential in a fresh, exciting way. Consider how every Legend of Zelda game features an entirely new version of Hyrule for Link to explore, while maintaining the same core tenets and geographic ideas that make it the same world no matter what. Every Hyrule is a different beast that feels unique to navigate and explore, but it's still, without a shadow of a doubt, Hyrule. Resident Evil 4 is an especially strong example of this. There's an argument to be made that it does what it sets out to do flawlessly, and because of that, it doesn't need a remake. But I don't think remaking games is a matter of whether or not they're necessary. Instead, I think it's an opportunity to explore the same ideas the game had explored before from a perspective never taken into account. Iteration is one of my favorite things in game design because good ideas deserve to be expanded for all their worth and pushed to their absolute limits. And Resident Evil 4's remake does exactly that. It doesn't attempt to show up or imitate the original. Instead, it replicates the foundation of everything that made it special, introduces it to entirely new concepts, and in doing so comes to a brand new, equally beautiful conclusion. Hey everyone, if you're watching this, welcome to the end of the video. I'm glad you made it, and while I know this channel's new, I'm planning to release a new video every single Monday, so look out for that. If you liked the video, I'd absolutely appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to help the channel out. Really means a lot to me. If you want more from me, last week I talked about how objectivity, quote-unquote, doesn't exist when judging video games, and I'm rather proud of that video, so by all means click that wherever I put it in the end card. Don't forget to like and comment there too. Again, any support helps, and I would love to have nuanced discussions with you guys. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Take care.